Tarrah Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so thrilled to speak to you guys today. We were just saying you're baby free for the next half an hour at least. So how does that feel?
Got his Orma looking after him.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to feel weird, I think.
Do you spend much time away? I mean, particularly you, Tarrah, you're with him a lot?
No, never.
Yeah.
Where we do have family, but they're not around the corner. So I think that my parents live interstate and it's a lot. He's like my little
buddy.
Little buddy constantly throughout the day. So it does feel particularly weird without him.
Yeah. Are you going to start, will you do childcare and things at some point? Have you thought about it?
I think at some point it's something that we definitely have to think about soon because the wait list to get into childcare is, I've heard, quite challenging. So we looked at one back when I was pregnant, but, wasn't really in a position to be like, oh, what days do you want? Who knows? But like we were just saying, this year has gone so fast that now we're at that point that we actually do have to start thinking about that and exploring those options. So that in itself is a whole different thing.
Just the next chapter, isn't it?
The next
Crazy.
chapter.
No, I love it.
They go quickly.
They do, don't they? So for those listening, I have Tarrah Jordan and Alexander here with me, and they are parents to baby Aspen. And after starting to try for a family in September 2021, Tarrah and Alexander faced the heartbreak of unexplained infertility, leading them through 10 rounds of IVF, pregnancy loss, and ultimately to their beautiful son, born at 37 weeks via a planned cesarean. Tarrah's openness about sharing her fertility journey on social media created a supportive community whilst helping others feel less alone in their struggles. So I think first and foremost, I mean, what a journey. And I'm really looking forward to sort of hearing your lessons and your experiences throughout that. To start with, what made you want to share such a vulnerable and raw part of your story?
Yeah, I think it was to seek a community that was going through something similar. It's an incredibly isolating thing to go through, and not a lot of people talk about it. I mean, even in today's age, people don't announce their pregnancy until they're out of that first trimester, just in the case of anything goes wrong in that first trimester, which is quite common. To me, I needed that support network, and I needed to hear that I wasn't alone going through, this journey that is infertility, and was sort of just seeking a community to sort of lean on and chat it out. I'm such a chat it out person, so I just as Ed will know, I just like to mull things over and sort of overthink out loud. And we sort of discuss how do we feel about sort of sharing this on TikTok. I was sort of going to the platform myself to try and find something, and we sort of did, not really knowing the journey that would eventuate from there and how it sort of did unfold.
At what point in your journey did you turn to social media and go, I'm actually going to share this?
It was January of 2023. So we started trying in September of 2021. So we'd already been trying for 12 plus months, and there wasn't anyone in our sort of immediate circle that it had taken that long for them to conceive. And, during that first initial point, you get a lot of people, giving advice in the sense of, do you have the timing right, or, relax, or go on holiday, or all of those sorts of things. And I was learning more and more about my cycle and fertility, which is just something we don't really get taught as young women. And I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that there was something more, and we'd engaged with a fertility specialist and had already tried a medication called letrozole, which was to help me have a strong ovulation. And I think it was at that point where I was like, I need a community. I need some sort of support. I need to chat it out. And sort of took to social media, not realising at all where it would eventuate to, not only in the sense of our journey, but also just to how big the platform, or how big our profile did grow. But I think beyond me wanting to, seek a community, I was also that person that was the community for others, and for people that did, want to go through their journey a little bit more silently. It sort of felt like they had, I guess, an online friend in a way that, they could, not feel so isolated when they go through it. And I think that's the bittersweet part of it all, if that makes sense.
Had you fallen pregnant at all before taking to social media?
Never.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Never had that positive pregnancy test.
Yeah, right. And Alexander, from your perspective, were you hesitant to have that all go public? How did you feel?
Not really. I think as Tarrah kind of said, like, more so for her than me, because I think like we're quite different people. Like I tend to like hold stuff closer to myself a bit more than Tarrah does, but I think for her it was quite clear that she needed an outlet more than anything else. And I think it has turned into like quite a beautiful thing in that it's a really positive thing for the both of us in being able to share what's going on in a sort of positive way, but then also have that space for other people to be like, well, I'm not actually alone in this, and start a discussion. I think that's probably been the most positive thing to come out of it, is that, a lot of more people feel like now that this isn't something that you need to go through by yourself or with your partner or in silence completely. Because from my experience, I don't know how you could do that for the period of time, even just a much shorter period, just the process of infertility and IVF and what that entails for each individual is like really taxing from a physical and an emotional perspective. So to go through it completely on your own would be super, super tough.
And maybe we may not have lasted as long as we did
maybe.
Without that. And with anything, like, support is so important.
Yes.
Having support through, something like that, or even in parenthood is so important.
Do you remember what your first post was, or the video? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. I remember we went to the beach. Was it Brighton? It was down that way anyway, Bayside. And, I just set up the camera on a little rock and we watched the sunset on the beach. Yeah. And we were just, taking a moment together, watching the sunset, dancing a little bit. And I edited that clip together and I put text over the top to kind of go, here's something that we've been struggling with for the past 18 months. Yeah. And I think it's important to talk about it because we're not alone. And that's sort of how it started. That's how we, launched, I suppose, on social media, which sounds wild, but that's when we first opened up about it. And that first time, you click share, it's just like, how is it all going to go? But it was nothing but support. And I think that's when I really felt like this is the right thing to do, because people are so lovely.
Yeah. Did you have many followers at that time? So was it more your friends and family who were supporting?
Yeah, not really. Yeah. I mean, I've always been in that sort of like marketing, communication, social media space in terms of my work. But was just using TikTok pretty much how everyone else was in 2020, just making funny little dance videos or skits and, sharing a few outfits that I'd wear to work here and there. And, just thought it was a great platform to be able to voice to camera, be able to chat it out, and sort of went from there, as opposed to Instagram, where I might have had a little bit more of a following,
right? But
it was more curated content, and I knew that what we were going to share was going to be really raw, so it felt like TikTok was the right platform for that.
Yeah, interesting. When did IVF come about in your journey?
It came about, I think we first started discussing it with our fertility specialist around March 2023. Okay. I had just had a hysteroscopy and a laparoscopy to remove the endometriosis that I had, but sort of clear out my tubes. And our fertility specialist at the time had given us guidance to, okay, now that we've done this procedure, let's try naturally for the next 2 to 3 months. And if we're still not pregnant, let's kind of discuss next steps. And I think around the same time, we went on a holiday to Europe. And I think whilst we were on that holiday and we still weren't pregnant, we sort of said to ourselves, you know what, let's just do IVF. Like, the science behind IVF is amazing. Yes. Yep. And very naively, probably both of us at the time thought it would work a lot quicker than it did. So for us, it kind of felt like, here's a solution. The biggest decision of IVF, I felt like at the time, was the financial decision. Yes. It wasn't the the fact it was more like this is going to be our solution. It's just the financial cost of it. That's what we felt like at the time. But so we just decided, let's just rip off the Band-Aid, do IVF, and we will be parents. That's naively what we thought. So there's a bit of a process you have to do before you go into a round of IVF, a psychological evaluation, police check, like lots. Was it police check? I feel like a lot of different things, like forms you have to fill out in terms of like if you create embryos, you know, the ownership of the embryos. If one person was to leave the relationship, what happens to it? So there's a lot of like sort of like documents that you have to do. And because we were, you know, going to Europe and we thought if we're not pregnant by the time we come back to Europe, we tried to rush that all in before we went. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's like a little distant.
Yeah, well, I remember at the time as well, there was also this element of like you can access your superannuation early to be able to fund IVF. And I remember like trying to look at that and I'm like, this is way too complicated. Like there's no way. And like we're going to Europe like that weekend. And I was like, there's no chance. That's going to happen. So we just have to make it work.
And I think, at the time we were like, all right, well, we can pay for one round of IVF, and if we needed to do it a second time, we'll have more time to you know, look into our superannuation. But, you know, here we are 10 rounds later and never accessed our super in the end. But it's nice to know that option was out there and available should you need to lean on it.
For those listening as well, sounds like that could be something for people to explore. On average, for those listening who might not know but are considering exploring the IVF, you know, avenue, what is an average price for IVF these days? What are people paying?
I think around, if you do it privately, 10 to 12 grand. Our cycles cost around 12-ish grand. It depends sort of, there's all these different elements within an IVF cycle that are quite personal to you and your bodies that might cost a little bit extra here and there depending on what medication you do. We had quite a really gentle way of fertilizing my eggs, so that just costs a little bit more. But you can do IVF publicly as well, which is I believe a lot more affordable in terms of upfront costs and then how much money you get back from Medicare. We are very lucky that we live in Australia and have access to Medicare, and that rebate, whilst it does help, it doesn't quite cover half, but you know, I think for your first round it covers maybe 30%, and every round after that it covers maybe around 40%. Ballpark.
Yes.
But it's still that upfront cost.
That's the thing. And before, Alexander, you mentioned it's the financial, but it's the emotional, it's the physical, it's the everything. What was there anything that caught you off guard, or that you want to let listeners know about your experience?
Well, I think Tarrah kind of alluded to it. Like we went into it thinking IVF as like a medical science practice is very controlled, and it'll be a case of you get egg, you get sperm, fertilize, you've got a baby.
Yes.
So we went into it very much thinking that would be that. And after one cycle, Tarrah would be pregnant and we'll have our first child. And that is definitely not the way that it works. And I think one of the things that we found throughout our journey is how individualized your care and treatment plan needs to be. And I guess the process that you need to go through to find that right fit for you, because you'll start with a treatment that will probably cater to the majority of patients. And then if that doesn't work, you're kind of then just sort of going further and further down the funnel to find what is the thing that's going to work for you. So in our case, we had to go through quite a lot of different cycles and try a lot of different things to find the thing that ultimately worked. And I think for us, we eventually got to a point where we basically tried everything. So now it would even be really hard for us to say exactly what is the variable that was the thing that made the difference, because we did so many things. So that's probably the biggest takeaway that I tell people is that IVF is amazing. Like it gives people the opportunity to have children that they otherwise may not get the opportunity to do so. But it's not a very simple process. It can take time, and it can take a lot of tweaking and changing and being very open and discuss everything with your fertility specialist to make sure that what you're doing is going to suit you best as an individual.
And I think that's what kept us going too. There was no two cycles that were the same. Every failure taught us something, and we took what didn't work from that cycle, and we developed a new protocol that we would try next time. So we weren't just doing the same thing over and over again, crossing our fingers and hoping for the best. We worked so closely with our fertility specialist, constant trial and error just to find our perfect protocol that was going to work for us and our bodies. And I think also breaking down the cycle in sections also helped. Because, we focused on the egg collection side of things, and then once we sort of felt comfortable in a position that we have embryos, we then focused on the transfer side of things and actual getting pregnant side. And that sort of, you talk about emotionally and mentally, that really helped me personally process what we were doing, because when you're trying to do everything at once, it was a lot to deal with. So breaking it down and sort of doing it section at a time turned a 60-day cycle essentially, which is what I was doing, down into, just a nice 30-day cycle, like a casual month-to-month cycle. And it was a lot more palatable.
And I think that's really valid what you're saying around chunking it down, because that's the biggest thing. And I can't even imagine doing what you did 10 times over. Was there any point in which you were like we're kind of done here? Like, we're at number 10, were you like, we're done? Or was it always like, no, we're going to keep persevering?
It's tricky because I would say no. I just feel like there were so many avenues that we could still explore. But that 10th round, that final round, we had just lost a double embryo transfer prior to the pregnancy that we gave us Aspen. And I remember after that transfer, or the transfer where I was pregnant with Aspen, I felt very defeated in that moment. And I remember feeling like, how much more can we do? How much more can I take? And I think if I wasn't pregnant with Aspen in that moment, I definitely would have needed to seek some professional help to sort of get me through it. It is such an emotionally taxing journey to go through. It's impossible to do by yourself, in my opinion. It's just it's a lot. And I think that there's so many options available, and that, like what Zena was saying, there's so many tweaks that you can make to a protocol that's going to be right for you. No two are going to be the same, just like no two babies are the same. So I never felt like I needed to give up, because I knew that there were things that we could try, but you still grieve the losses that you do have.
Yeah. And I think there was throughout the period of our journey, we did have points where we're like, let's just have a month off and just reset before we then go into the next one. And I think that was helpful at different points along the way, just to sort of take a breather and disconnect from it a little bit and then come back to it. And then I think, as Tarrah said before, it's just sort of having it where we were kind of compartmentalizing different aspects of the whole process to work out what was it that we need to try and fix or get better results for. That, even when we did have failures, was the silver lining that kept us going, because we're going, okay, we only got X eggs last time. Now with this change, we've got an increase. That's a positive outcome. And then we've gone from X number of fertilized embryos to this number of fertilized embryos. That's another positive outcome. So even though each cycle didn't necessarily result in a pregnancy, we were still able to, I think that was ultimately the thing that kept us going and allowed us to keep coming back, because each time we were focusing on what were the things that we could see incremental improvement in to then use and carry forward into the future cycle, so that we can keep on building on it and get closer and closer to what we were trying to achieve. Because if you were just doing it the same after again, it would ruin you.
Because that pillar of hope isn't there in each sort of tweak that's made. It's like, okay, no, we're
getting somewhere now.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I would love to know, what would have each of you learned about each other that you perhaps didn't know or appreciate before that journey?
Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? I could never have done this without Xander. And like I said, I am a chatted out person. I need a sounding board. I think he would have got sick of my voice. I was like, let's just talk about this one more time. Alexander is an excellent listener, and he is just so reassuring, and he just looks after me so well. And I'm going to get teary. I'm going to cry. But he is just my rock. And you really do need someone like that in your relationship, especially when going through something like this, because, yeah, it's just I really learnt how empathetic and caring he is, and I saw that firsthand. And I think when you do get married to someone, you go through sickness and in health, and, actually, walking the steps of that is a whole nother thing to experience together. And yeah, thank you. I don't know if I've said thank you enough, but thank you for being there for me.
Yeah, cool. What have I learned about Tarrah that I didn't know before? I think it's not necessarily something that I didn't know before, but I think it just reinforced for me how strong Tarrah is as a person, because I think throughout the journey that we've been through, as a man, being a partner of a woman going through something like this, you really appreciate how hard it is for women that have to go through this, and the level of difficulty for a man in the sense of the journey is, I think, significantly less. So to see how Tarrah was able to navigate that journey with such tenacity, with such grace, I think was I was in awe, and still am in awe of her. For the way that she handled that, because it's a really, as I said, it's really, really hard. It's really hard. And I think not only from a mental sense, but from a physical sense too for the women, because there was a period where I think there wasn't a day that went by that Tarrah wasn't having to have some kind of injection herself. Either I was needing to give her an injection, or she was doing one herself, or she was at an appointment and there was something being done. So to be pricked and prodded for that period of time, and to have all of these different procedures done on her, there's also that aspect that I didn't necessarily have to experience. So, yeah, I just think it's the strength. And I always knew that she was a very strong person, but I think just the level was like, yeah, it's so high. It's pretty crazy.
You'd think, coming out of something like that as a couple, you'd think that, I might be putting words in your mouth, but you're sort of stronger as a couple, having experienced those, would you agree? What would you say? Yeah.
I would agree.
I think so. I think there have always been these weird things that, they don't really compare to this, but for us to get married was difficult, because we got engaged just before COVID, and then we had to postpone our wedding 3 times, and that was a stressful exercise, and there was a lot of stress and anxiety throughout that I think brought us closer together. And then this, I think, has just amplified that by a million. It really is we can run through walls together now.
And now, entering parenthood, and I feel like I'm at an appointment every second day with Aspen, and navigating, all of his things. And I think it's just, yeah. When do we get a break?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a bit like
this is life. Question for you, for the people who are listening, who are in the thick of it, and whether it's the partner, whether it's the person who's going through it physically, like you were saying, any advice? What kept you guys going on those really tough days where you were like, God, I'm so over everything. I'm over you at this point. I'm just over everything. I always say, if for those listening who are really struggling, I've done couples counselling with my husband before during a tough spot for us. Sometimes getting that third-party advice can be really supportive. But were there things that you felt, helped you during those really tough times?
I think for me, feel your emotions and let them out.
Yeah.
Have a good crying session. I had multiple. Bottling in those feelings, I don't think are really going to help anyone, and being able to let them out, or for me, chatting it out, talking to someone, even just saying it out loud really helped. Yeah. And then, sort of what Xander was saying before is there's always a silver lining to something, and it might not have been the outcome that we wanted, and we would have loved to have just done one round of IVF or loved to have fallen pregnant naturally if we go all the way back. But, what do we learn from that cycle? What can we take out of there that's actually positive that we didn't know before? And I would just manifest and focus on that and really just focus. There was never a moment that I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get there. Yeah. I visualized our baby. I knew that, we were going to get there one day, and I knew that what we were doing were stepping stones to get to that, and I just had to hone in on that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that we did was also, as we've sort of spoken about already, when you're breaking down an IVF cycle into each of its individual elements, you can go through this quite insane roller coaster of highs and lows, but we really celebrated the wins when they came, and then we also grieved the losses when they came. So I think allowing yourself to do that, because I think for me, there was an element of I never wanted to get too excited or too hopeful that cycle was going to be the one, just to prepare myself for what could be a failure. But I think, as Tarrah said, really allow yourself to feel the emotions and ride that roller coaster, because it's a pretty wild ride.
Wild ride, yeah.
It's a wild ride. So, and I think just talk to people. I think after every cycle that we did that didn't come out the way that we wanted to, Tarrah and I I feel like we had this sort of long debrief discussion to go, okay, this is what we did, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, these are the key pointers that we want to bring up at our next appointment with our fertility specialist. Yeah. And then it's kind of, you're drawing a line under it. You know what's taking forward and you know what to leave behind. Yes. So, I think that was...
And, to circle back to it, the community that we were so lucky to sort of have, and that would be, we talk about unsolicited advice and how it's not wanted, and there is so much advice in parenthood, which is probably a whole nother podcast. But in the fertility space, there's so much advocating that you do have to do for yourself. It's, I think, again, a naive thing that Xander and I thought is that you'd go there and they'd sort of just tell you what to do. But the amount of questions that we would come with to our fertility specialist with that were from the community commenting on, our journey that we were sharing, it would
just be like, oh, have you thought about doing this? And then we go, I have no idea.
I have no idea what that is.
Google it, you go, okay. And then you go to the fertility specialist and you go, nah, or okay, we can give it a go.
Yeah. So I truly believe that by sharing our journey and building that community, and the amount of people that would share their own stories, actually, I know 10 rounds of IVF is a lot, and it did take us 3 years to conceive, but it truly fast-tracked. I feel like it fast-tracked our journey. Yeah. And I have no doubt that we would probably not be sitting here with Aspen today if it wasn't for sharing and getting the advice from others. And I still, have people sliding into my DMs and asking for tips and advice. I love a voice memo, so if you're sliding in, that's probably what you'll get back. But it's so helpful that we lean on each other, and it's so important that you advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. I was at an event that you were emceeing, Tarrah, and I noticed as soon as you stepped down from the platform, there's just people coming towards you, and people who I was sitting with were like, I need to speak to Tarrah because my friend said that she's struggling, and she's asked, she wants me to ask Tarrah this particular question. And you're just seeing it live outside of social media, and you go, wow, to your point, what an amazing community that you have just kind of created through the pain and just the raw vulnerability that you shared. So I think, absolute credit to both of you, honestly. And I think there's so much respect around being fearless in going out there and saying, I'm struggling and this is what I'm going through. The $1 million question, do you feel like you would like to have another child? Where are you at with that?
I would love to have 8 babies. I think it really does help that Aspen is a real life angel, but we have one more embryo left on ice, and it probably don't have time to sit on that, considering how long it took to get Aspen. I think I would like to be able to think about transferring that in the new year. And if that doesn't work, then I would go through another egg collection to try and get some more embryos because we don't have any more from there. And I would love to have another baby. I'd love to be able to give Aspen a sibling, and I guess we will see what happens. I'd love to be able to fall pregnant naturally. I don't know if that's our reality.
I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of stories about people that really struggle for their first and then the second one comes around super easy. So cross our fingers that maybe we can get a bit of luck there. Yeah. But I think
definitely in the
want
new
another
year.
one.
I'd love to be able to, choose the age gap between children, but at this point it's just I'd love to be able to have another one.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm sending you love and well wishes for that journey. And I ask all of my guests this final question. So how has parenthood changed you both as people?
Oh, it's been the most beautiful, wild, just surreal, magical. Oh my gosh, how many more words can I pull out? A ride of our lives. It's just, I always think back to his birth, and those 4 days that we spent in hospital is probably the most magical time in our life after our wedding. And it might even trump the wedding, dare I say that? But it has just been one of the most beautiful experiences and something that I've dreamed of for such a long time. So to actually be living your dream is just, another thing.
I think it's changed our lives in the best possible way, but I don't think as people we've changed because I think the journey that we've gone through, we always knew this is where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So we were already kind of in that we kind of had to be in that space already because to do what we did and get through what we got through, we were already mum and dad. Yeah. So
to Hazel.
To the dog. To the dog at least. So I feel like, as people, like we were already so prepared and ready to be parents that I think now that we actually are, I don't really think there's been much that we've changed as people.
I think, I speak for you, but maybe for me, I feel like we've just taken it in our stride and just rolled with it, and it's felt really natural, and it's felt really beautiful and intuitive, and
it just takes like 3 times as long to get out of the house.
It does.
That's the only. You got to think about so many more things.
The nap math.
What do we need to bring? Have we got enough nappies in the nappy bag?
The reality of parenthood. No, I love it. Thank you both so much for your time.
Amazing. Thanks for having us.